I said don't open it yet. So, Samara. So, with Johnny and his mule, it takes place in the past, okay? Where they were walking to school and everything, and it's also taking place in the Great Smoky Mountains, okay? So I'm going to give some information about the Smoky Mountains before we start reading, okay? So this isn't in your book, you need to listen. The Great Smoky Mountains are part of the Appalachian Mountain System. They form the border between Tennessee and North Carolina, and were named Smoky because the thickly forested mountains create a humid atmosphere that looks like a smoky mist. In 1930, most of the Great Smoky Mountains were established as the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Mules. The mule is an offspring of a male donkey and a female horse. The mix creates an animal suitable in size and strength for difficult work. In the 1900s, mules were used mostly on farms and as pack animals. However, technology has decreased the need for mules to do hard work. So, they would use them to carry things or do plow work and things like that. But now we have trucks and machinery to do those things, right? We have trucks that can carry the heavy loads, and we have tractors that can do the plow work for us, right? So that's why mules aren't used as often. So we're going to read a story. We're going to read part of it. It's going to take us the next 3 days, today and tomorrow and Wednesday, to finish this story, okay? But first, we haven't done a page yet, so just get out your book, okay? The children had to bustle along in order to reach school on time. What do you think the word bustle means, Lillian? Is it just walking, or is there something different about it? Kind of. It's like an energetic walk, okay? So they're not really running, but they're walking fast, and they're kind of eager to get where they're going. Does that make sense? A little bit. Peter was so upset that he stammered the words as he told the story. What does stammered mean, Bella?
Started when he's speaking, he messes up his words, kind of.
Right. So it's kind of repeating the initial letters of a word. So when someone's like, but I didn't know better, right? That's stammering, okay? He decided to swap his toy car for his brother's giant cookie. Most of you probably know what swap means, but what does swap mean, Sarah? To trade or exchange, right? And then no matter how hard I pulled on the cow's rope, the bulker would not move. What does bulker mean? Boy Leon? It's kind of. It's referring to a behavior. So if something's a bulker, it can even be a person, because what it really means is to hesitate, or it's unwilling to accept an idea. So it kind of means to be stubborn. That's kind of what it means. So animals, we usually think, we call animals stubborn a lot, especially if we're trying to get them to do something and they won't, right? Like if I'm trying to get my pony to move and he doesn't want to because he wants to stay in this spot and eat the grass, he's being stubborn, right? Okay. So I want you to go to page 96 in your books. Page 96. It says Johnny and his mule. So while you're doing that, some of you might already be there. Look at the picture up top. You see a lot of small houses. You see a church and a lot of trees, right? It's different. Listen, it's different than what you'd probably see now when you go to the Great Smoky Mountains, because yes, there are still houses and churches, but there's a lot more big buildings and businesses, and there's still a lot of trees, but there's not this many trees between houses that are this close, right?
They should probably cut the trees down because there's a lot.
No, you don't want to cut the trees down. Remember we talked about natural and reusable resources, so when you cut one down, you need to plant one, right? Or we run out of forest, and that's what happened to the animals' homes. Remember in social studies? Yeah. All right, so let's look at page 96. A good excuse. Away up in the Great Smoky Mountains, there's a town called, Horny Hollow. It is not a very large town, and the Great Smoky Mountains standing all around make it seem very small indeed. There are no more than 20 dwellings there, a courthouse, several stores, a church, and a schoolhouse. When it says dwelling, it means home, right? There's only about 20 dwellings, 20 homes. To this little schoolhouse came all the children in the town and a little mountain boy named Johnny. Johnny lived far back in the hills, a long, long way from town. He had to get up very early when the cocks were crowing for the sunrise to get to school on time. But in spite of the long walk over the mountains, he was never late for school. The town children might bustle into the schoolyard as the last bell was ringing. They might catch the end of the line as it's marching into the building. They might even tiptoe fearfully into the room after class had started, but never Johnny. He was always in his place as the line marched in and always in the proper seat when class began. In the fall, in the winter, and in the spring, it was always the same. Johnny was always on time. But one day, toward the end of the school year, Johnny was late. The last bell rang, and Johnny was not there. 9 o'clock came, and still no Johnny. 10 o'clock rolled around, 10:30, and not a sign of Johnny. It was so very late now, the teacher and the children began to wonder what had happened. Perhaps Johnny was sick, or perhaps he had fallen over the steep mountainside on the way to school. But a half hour later, at 11 o'clock, there was a shuffle, shuffle outside the door. It opened slowly, and Johnny creaked quiltedly into the room. "Why, Johnny," cried the teacher, "it's 11 o'clock. Why are you so late?" "I just couldn't help it, Miss Mary," stammered Johnny, and he looked as though he might cry at any moment. "But tell me what happened," urged Miss Mary. "I got into town early this morning, Miss Mary," began Johnny, "in plenty of time for school, but I stopped for a minute in the town square to watch the auction." Everybody knew about the auction. It was held every Friday, and the mountaineers called it Trade Day. They came in from all the surrounding hills and ranges, bringing anything they had on hand that they wanted to swap or sell. Homemade chairs, baskets, turkeys, jackknives, horses, preserves, feather pillows, and anything and everything went on sale in the town square on Friday. All right. "And so," continued Johnny, "while I was standing there, an old mule was put up to be sold. The auctioneer began shouting, 'What am I offered for this mule? What am I bid? What am I bid?' Nobody would begin the bidding, and so, just to get the sale started, I hollered out, 'I bid 5 cents. I thought sure somebody would bid higher because mules cost a lot of money, but nobody did, and so they gave me the mule. And there I stood, Miss Mary, holding the mule by the halter. I didn't know what to do with him. About the only thing I could think of was to take him along to school with me, so I started toward the schoolhouse leading the mule. I soon found out why nobody wanted that mule. After he had gone about a block, he stopped stock still. I tried every way to get him to get along, but he wouldn't budge an inch. He was a balker. Lots of people tried to make him go, but no, sir. That mule wouldn't go until he felt like it. After a while, all by himself, he took the notion to start. He walked another block, and then he balked again. Miss Mary, I tell you the truth. It took me 2 hours to get that critter 4 blocks to the schoolhouse. That's why I'm late. It really is." "Why, Johnny," exclaimed Miss Mary, "I never heard such a tale." "If you don't believe me, Miss Mary, just look out the window," replied Johnny. The teacher gazed through the window, and so did all the pupils. Pupils are students. There, tied to a tree, was a mule. He had his head hung down, and his long ears flopped sadly. There was no doubt about it. Johnny's tale was true. Lessons began again, and the day wore on. Johnny did not pay much attention to his lessons. The thought of this mule lay heavy on his mind. What would he do with him? All right, keep your page there. So that's where we're stopping for today. Get out your workbooks. A big thing that was used, made, and sold and traded back then were quilts. Okay, homemade quilts. And quilts were used making patterns. Patterns of colors and shapes and things like that. At the top, you see that they already have the outline of a quilt. Okay, with all the shapes and everything on page 39. So, what you are going to do is you are going to assign each number a color. So, if you want number 1 to be blue, that's what you're going to do. Say you want number 5 to be yellow, that's what you're going to write down. And anywhere there's a number 1, you're going to color it blue or whatever color you assign it. Okay? So it's like color by number, but you get to assign the colors. Okay? So you're going to do that, but then you also need to do the bottom part where it says read the paragraph and answer the questions. Okay? So you're going to read that question, those paragraphs, and then answer those 4 questions. Now look at number 4 for me. It says name 6 things that were sold or bartered on trade day. So, they talk about things in this paragraph, okay? There are things listed, but I want you to make sure they have 6 lines for you, but I want to make sure that you do, guys, I want you to be paying attention. You need to make sure you put 6 things, okay? There are 6 lines, you need 6 things, okay? Any questions on what you are doing? All right. Go ahead and get started.